True story. A house with a portal to the spirit world. Hey guys, I recently found this subreddit and thought it would be a good place to share a pretty freaky and true story about a friend's house of mine. Most of the details below come from my friend herself, and without me being there. However, I do have some experiences of my own at that house that I'll also share. First, some background. It all started in 1999. I used to have this really tight group of 5 friends in middle school. 3 girls, 3 guys, including myself. One of the girls, we'll call her Josie, was really getting into witchcraft all of a sudden, doing spells at her house and at school, enchanting objects, etc. Although I've always believed in ghosts, I was a huge skeptic of witchcraft and never believed that any of it actually worked. I'd eventually be proven wrong. Josie used to have a friend that would accompany her and do witchcraft with her. This friend moved away, and so Josie tried to convince someone in her little group to accompany her and learn the ways of witchcraft. Only one of us bought into this, my friend Becca, and her and Josie began to hang out a lot more together. They quickly became best friends and we barely saw them. After school, they were always at one or the other's house, doing God knows what. From what I understand, the witchcraft started out innocent enough, but eventually took a darker turn. I don't think they were getting any real results with their more positive spells, so they swallowed their fears and began to venture into darker spells and seances. Spells that could summon the dead, open portals into new worlds, really cult-like kind of shit. Fast forward a bit to July of 2000, and my family is getting ready to move away. Before we moved, I had a going away party and Becca and Josie were there. They were really quiet the entire time, and I noticed they've been looking sadder and paler over the past few months. I asked Josie what was wrong, and she wouldn't tell me. Becca, however, was willing to tell me everything. She told me a story about how a week before, they were at Becca's house doing a protective mirror spell. It's a spell that you and another person can do, facing a mirror, in hopes of creating protective energy around oneself from negative forces. Apparently, this particular spell they executed didn't go as planned, and they weren't expecting anything paranormal to happen. They did the spell in Becca's bathroom on the 2nd floor of her house, with the lights off and a single candle was lit. They rehearsed the spell together beforehand so they could accomplish it as accurately as possible and to a specific beat. They began the spell, which required them to keep their eyes closed until the very, very end. When they got to the apex of the spell, my friend Josie apparently felt an extremely negative and dark presence behind her. She opened her eyes and began to scream. Becca opened hers in response, and what she saw terrified her. Behind her and Josie were 2 tall, dark shadow figures. Their features were obscured by blackness. Becca began screaming as well, and they both hightailed out of the bathroom and into Becca's room. Soon after that, Josie shook off the fear and left Becca's house. The spell itself was never completed, and the incomplete spell leads me to the point of this story. Apparently, when doing a mirror spell, it creates a link to another dimension or world. After creating this link, energy is taken from that world and used to create a set barrier around you, and when the spell is completed, the link is severed and closed. It seems that as though my friends create a link to another world, but they never ended up severing the link. Thus began an abundance of weird and dark paranormal activity at Becca's house. Now, like I said, I moved away, but my family eventually came back after 5 years. I rekindled my friendship with Becca. Josie had moved on from witchcraft and to other friends while I was gone, and I think I've only seen her twice since I moved back in 2005. Anyways, Becca and her younger sister Kat were now very spirited, and over a nice hookah session, Becca caught me up on the goings-on of her house. Ever since that fateful night in 2000, Becca and her family had encounters, both innocent and unfriendly. It's important to note that they never had paranormal encounters like this at their house before the spell went down, and that their house was in a newish development and was built in 1994. They were the first occupants. The anecdotes that stick out in my mind. One night, Becca was reading a book in her bed with all the lights off except for her reading light. Out of nowhere, a disembodied head appeared to her left, whizzed past her, looked her way for a second, and then disappeared into the wall across the room. She said the head was of a bald man in his later years, and he looked deeply concerned. The experience lasted about 2 or 3 seconds, but she says it felt like an eternity. Becca's entire family has had multiple sightings of a dark shadow figure in various places in the house, with the most common sightings being at the top of the stairs. Also, about the stairs, the family all had experiences where, when they got to the top of the stairs, they felt like they were being stopped or pushed back. The worst was when Becca got to the top with a bowl of chips. The bowl was knocked from her hands, and when she almost fell back and down the stairs. It's important to note that the bathroom is to the very left of the stairs when you get to the top. Other spirits have been seen for brief periods of time, reflected in the bathroom mirror. Apparently, the basement rather than the bathrooms was always the worst spot. Frequent sightings of the shadow figure that gave bad, negative vibes, and voices can be heard. Kat has experienced frequent brushing against her skin and static charge in concentrated areas of her body. Parts of the house will suddenly drop in temperature, even with the air conditioning off. Voices and footsteps can be heard when no one else is in the house. At nights, they have spotted a woman in a white dress in the backyard behind their house, right at the edge of a wooded area. Their backyard isn't fenced in, and at the back end of it, there are woods. They can sometimes hear someone or something call for help late at night in the backyard, and they believed it to be this ghost. Any pictures in the house always produced orbs, especially in the basement area. Tons of orbs in the basement. I'll post a picture if I can find one. The most interesting part, they held seances to see if they could ask what the spirits wanted. They received actual feedback during these seances. Most of the ghosts were good people, and were just lost. They had no idea how they had gone to that house and why. These ghosts told them of the evil ghost, the shadow figure. Apparently, the shadow figure was a demon and didn't want anyone messing with the open portal. I could go on with the stories. There are too many to count. Becca and Kat did a lot of research and found out about the whole leaving a portal open thing after screwing up the spell. In 2010, they finally closed the portal after a seance they had with some pagan acquaintances they met, and the hauntings and activity eventually stopped. Now, for my personal experiences at the house, the second floor bathroom was so creepy. Every time I had to pee when I was there, I would just go to the first floor downstairs and go there to do my business. I never encountered anything in the bathroom except for the creepy vibes, though. One day, it was just me and Becca at her house hanging out in her bedroom having a cigarette. No one else was home at the time. During a conversation, we both heard someone from the first floor shout, "Hello, Becca, Becca?" We both thought it was Kat, so Becca went out of her room without delay and over to the railing that overlooks the first floor. Becca shouted, "What's up?" Nothing. No response. We went downstairs and no one was there. All the doors were locked. We went to the garage and nothing. Backyard, nothing. Front yard and driveway, well, you get the idea. Nothing. Then we noticed that all 4 of their chairs at the kitchen table were pulled out all the way. They're never like that. Her family is OCD about cleaning and keeping things in order. I was spooked, but Becca shrugged it off. Apparently, it wasn't the first time something like this happened. She was excited I had my first real paranormal experience at her house, though. We were all hanging out in Kat's room one day. There were about 4 of us. I got a call from my girlfriend, now wife, who was living on the other side of the state at the time. My friends leave to go downstairs, and I tell them I'm going to be a minute. I'm sitting on the floor talking to my girlfriend, my head facing away from the door as I was talking. I felt a hand tap at the top of my head. I turned around and looked up. No one was there. It freaked me the hell out. I called for Kat, who came running upstairs. I asked if she was up here and tapped on my head to get my attention or something like that. "No," she replied. "I was downstairs with everyone else. No one else is up here." "Yeah, no one. Except a ghost." Awesome. And that's it. My friend's house was haunted. Feel free to ask me questions and I'll try to respond as quickly as I can. Also, please forgive any spelling errors that I have. I'll try to edit after posting if needed. One more thing. I have another secondhand story I want to share, this time with picture evidence. Completely different story and events. Stay tuned for that post in the coming days. Thanks for reading! Portal in the woods. There are these woods I go to with my living partner. With this one part, I always feel great tension. Almost every time we pass that part of the woods, something strange happens. One time I heard demonic-like voices, and part of it was whispered directly into my ear. Right after that, my significant other immediately said, "Let's get out of here," and he isn't the type to get scared easily. Other times, we felt like we were being watched or followed near that location. A few hours ago, he saw a really big white thing. I didn't see it, but when I walked to the center of the activity, I got heart palpitations. I moved a few feet away and it stopped. He said it was a big and formless white thing that jumped away into the trees. I didn't see anything move, but if anything had jumped in the bushes, it would have been audible and twigs would have moved too. The whole way home, he had a look on his face like he was trying to manage what he saw. I really wonder if there was a portal there, or maybe it's just a hotspot of activity. Either way, there was something strange about this spot in these woods, and it part proves to me there's something much more to the world that we can see. Some background: I'm a 37-year-old woman and he's a male. We are urban explorers and hikers and sometimes go into abandoned buildings, even in one said to be haunted. We never felt or saw anything, not even in abandoned psych wards. These woods are where we go hiking. My house is a portal? A little background. My parents bought my house while it was still being built. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-story with a basement and garage below. When I was 5 years old, we took in my cousins, and a few years later, it was decided to build an upstairs to make room for us 4 kids. Prior to the renovations, I occasionally saw a black cloaked figure, similar to the pictures of death but no Sith, standing over me. It was never menacing. In fact, it was comforting. However, when the first weekend of the construction started, it was like the entire spirit world showed up. I saw random kids, adults, non-human entities, animals appear and disappear in the house, and it hasn't stopped since. They turned the attic into a whole upstairs, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Later they added a bedroom in the back of the basement for my brother. In that process, they realized that the basement has a serious water problem, and did some research. Turns out, the house is right on top of an underground spring. The older master bedroom is the worst for activities. It's a decent walk-in closet and an in-suite bathroom. After my parents made a new gigantic bathroom upstairs, my cousin took over the old master, and I didn't notice much, except that she started sleeping with the lights on and always looked exhausted. As she became a teen and started driving, I would notice her TV and stereo turning themselves on and off, changing volume and channel. The lights did similar. I didn't think much of it until she moved out and I got that room. Then I saw it all. Shadow figures, doors opening and closing, electronics acting weird, orbs of light racing across the ceilings, eyes in the closet, growling, and the weirdest. One night, I randomly woke up and saw a creature. It looked like a dragon, sitting on a bedposter, and the long neck was stretched down so far, its breath was on my face. Not scary, in fact. I felt protected by it. Generally, most of the spirits just wanted acknowledgement, and most negative stuff kinda came and went at random, though any sort of ghost or paranormal movie and show seemed to aggravate the more permanent residents. We have put several pet past, and I didn't think they have actually left us. The shadow figure of my early childhood is always around and occasionally points at me as it stands over me. Occasionally, the spirits seem to play with our cats. We even had one spirit that stole and drank beer out of my mini fridge and left the empty bottles all over in a locked room. My parents have moved back to the old master bedroom since Dad can't do the stairs anymore, and I moved to the new master upstairs. Dad strictly doesn't believe in paranormal. Mom doesn't know what to think, but she admits that she's seen weird shit. A few years ago, we remodeled again to make the downstairs handicap accessible, and my dad's best friend moved into the room across from theirs. He has spent one night with the lights off total. He's terrified of the house. He's had the door open and slam, the ghost of a few cats' visits, and her pacing in the hallway when everyone was out. This man was never scared of anything, and even discussing what he's seen makes him shake like a leaf. Upstairs is pretty calm, mild stuff, but I remember one day being home alone, and my bedroom door starting to get pounded on, as if my dad were furiously trying to pound it down. It stopped after about 10 minutes, and right at that exact moment, my car alarm went off for no goddamn reason. When I gathered the nerve to run outside, I saw a figure staring out my bedroom window at me. I sat outside until my dad got home, and we searched the house from top to bottom. Empty. I read once that water is often a portal for spirits, and I wonder if that underground spring, plus the renovations, brought out the activity. I know that I am sensitive, and I think many of the spirits were attracted to me because of that, but I also think my house is just fucked. Lately, the house is fairly quiet, except at night when I get in bed. About 5 minutes after I get in bed, I feel a cat jump on the bed at my feet, walk up, and lay at my butt. That started when I lost my Himalayan cat to feline leukemia, and the behavior fits him perfectly. I know that the house isn't empty, I can feel them, but aside from the nightly butt cuddles from a ghost cat, it's been quiet. Opinions? Advice? Did I see a portal in time? I'm new to this website, so please correct me if it doesn't belong on here. I was around 5 or 6 at the time, and I was at the kitchen crying because my brother was being an asshole to me. So my elder brother took him to the living room to talk, so I left alone, crying in the kitchen. Then I wiped my tears, and for some reason I turned at the wall. There, I see a portal-like shape on the wall. The outlines were blurry, but the inside was clear as day. Though what's strange is that it never made any sounds. Inside had a pleasing neighborhood like colorful houses, clear skies, green grass that's been cut, and clean sidewalks. But the people in the neighborhood wore 60s clothing, and they didn't notice me watching them. I looked at the hallway to see if my brothers noticed. The hallway connects to the living room, and you can see the kitchen. Neither of them saw anything. So when I looked back at the portal, it was gone though. I swear it wasn't my imagination, because I never knew what 60s was, or what kind of clothing they wear until afterwards. The glitch on State Highway 1 in California. So yesterday was one of the most jaw-gawking experiences I've experienced in a long while, but not compared to my brother and my mother. Some background of everything and one in the story. I'm 16 and my brother is 17. My brother and mother were submerged into. I'm just recounting what they saw when I was daydreaming away in the car. 2 hamsters, 5 rats, and 3 cats. Brother diabetic. NorCal Bay Area. These are some things to keep in mind. The whole phenomenon is true. Dating June 18, 2018. The night before this was one of our special hamsters that got sick, and we decided to carry him around with us in a transportation cage. But yesterday started out like any other day per usual. Today my older brother had a diabetic appointment, and we were running late, which isn't great at all, so with the dying hamster we went. My mother rescheduled it 5 p.m., so we decided, hey, let's eat out at a buffet. As we had our minds set on food, the traffic was still being a dick. Hunger overtook us, and we found a McDonald's at the next stop. We stopped and ate, and then we headed back to the car. Whilst we brought our hamster in and such, he wasn't eating or drinking at all. But when we went, we were situated back in the car. He was slowly drifting away. We were devastated. Tears, snot, and such. My mother then thought, let's go on a drive. At 6:50 p.m., we were in Half Moon Bay, and as we drove, we reached the State Highway number 1. Now, we've never driven on this road, but since we live in Cali, there are many roads we haven't driven on before. So this road is on the coast of the state, so it ranged all the way down to LA. While we are driving, we, 8 p.m., are blasting music and having a good time. And then we landed ourselves in Santa Cruz, since we need to use the restrooms and fill our car. My mother is very spontaneous of a person, and I love that about her, and this was one of her times of being spontaneous. We decided to kick it at the boardwalk and ride a few rides. Most people think, hey, the boardwalk must be pricey over in Santa Cruz, and we know that it is. Until the beautiful deal of 150 rides past 5 p.m. was a thing during summer until 11 p.m. So we started having fun to ride 2 rides, the first being the spooky ride, the Haunted Castle, but for some reason it broke down at 10:14 p.m. But then we rode another ride and hey, it was fine. Since we were bored and the Big Dipper roller coaster was so frickin' long, we decided to hop on the waterlog ride. I sat middle, my mother front, and my brother back. They both soaked in water, me dry all over, and only wet here and there on my hair. So we walk around, dotting in Neptune's kingdom and shiz and, having a good time. The place was closing since it was already 11, so we head back to the car and drive back home. So we are deciding between State Highway number 1 or Highway 17, which if no one knows is a very, very dangerous highway. So we take State Highway number 1, so we drive for a good 30 minutes. I put my earbuds in and just stare out the window. So I'm enjoying my music and sometimes looking down at my phone and such. I get the feeling to record how dark and desolate it is. But then I stop and shrug and think, nah, continue looking out the window. Now, I'm usually looking forward or to the windows. So whilst I'm just hazing and low-key wishing to see something scary, the car swerves to the side, and I rip my headphones off because I wasn't hearing music at the time, just thinking and looking. I look at them while they're gawking and in a cold sweat. Now, here are some things about my mother and brother. My brother is a skeptic about a lot of shit in life, but he is a believer if he sees it. My mother is a 50s skeptic because she usually loves horror movies and stuff like it, urban exploring and all sorts of wild things. I got another crazy story, but that's for another time. But my mother is sober and clear-minded. She hasn't smoked or none like that. So she looked at my brother and he looked at her. What the hell is wrong with you guys? I shout at them. Did you see that? She asked me in a timid tone. I shake my head and say, see what, the darkness around us? She sighs and shakes her head. You know how in Harry Potter, the first movie, there was a transparent cloak? But think of that, but as a wall rippling by like a heat wave, but it moved, there was a glitchy feeling to it. And look what a portal would look like, or a glitch in a simulated world, or a rip in another dimension. This all occurred at 1 a.m. It was clear and had like a transparent plasma shifting like a moving wall in front of my headlights. My brother also agrees. He saw it. He's shaking as I didn't see it and they did. Now, me being me, I try in every way to think of mythology or a paranormal thing. It feels so familiar the way that she described it. She believed it looked nano but also liquid. She was going on about how it makes her question the reality that we all live in, or is this just something that we are placed in, or was it an alien? Now we drive home, and I'm glued on the road. Kinda peeved I didn't see it, but something strange happened. So we have 3 cats, 2 males and 1 female. The first male, which is the oldest, and is the father of the youngest male, and husband of the female, and the female is a mother, also for the little boy, and wifey for the oldest male. Now, the second was the runt of the litter she had last summer, and he's all black and has anxiety issues and such. He has a lot of medical issues with him, so we placed him in a crate before we left because he was recently defecating on the counter, and that isn't good. So he bought a carrier he can stay in while we are gone, and yes, he had food and water in the cage. But when we arrived home, the top we flipped over and his cat and water was everywhere. Since he is the size of a 3-month-old kitten, he couldn't have enough strength to do that, so we are shook, but not really, until I go into my room and see the 3 hamsters I have in their cage. I was relieved until I see the 2 boys are terrified in a corner, and the third one, which is female, is dead. She dropped dead while crapping. She was still warm and no rigor mortis yet. She died an hour prior, exactly around when they saw that thing at 1 a.m. in the morning. It's now around 2:30 a.m. right now, so I'm scared and a bit sad. But scared? The 3 rats are also in the room, looking petrified. Especially the one rat who hates being touched, and is always puffy and skinny and is afraid. He allowed me to scoop him up and rock him like a baby. I was so scared, and I'm still frightened. How? And why? Is it when I was wet by the water on the water ride? Indicated I was not going to be exposed to whatever that was? And how was the hamster full and healthy? Not sick, just dropped dead in an hour. Especially at 1. Exactly at 1. So I'm here to ask Reddit this. Has anyone seen something like a wall of plasma, wavy like a heat wave and transparent, like the invisible cloak on Harry Potter? I know, it wasn't only on the State Highway 1. To me, I feel like I've read something so similar, but I can't put my finger on it. A thing that blends with its surroundings and ripples like a wave of plasma and glitches. Please, if anyone knows anything, please, I need to know. Portal to Another World. There's a lot of different little stories in this, so I apologize, but I promise they're all worth it. I dated this guy in high school for around 2 years. We'll call him Cody. At the very early stages of our relationship, his mother passed away from colon cancer. I never met her because she was always in the hospital, and we just weren't at that level yet in our relationship. I went to the funeral with him and her memorial. It was truly a saddening time. Once we got more in depth with each other, I was at his house quite often. It was a ginormous 5-bedroom house with 2 full baths and a half bath, spacious living room, and a generous sized bedrooms. But it was dirty. They just couldn't keep anything clean due to their 3 dogs, 1 cat, and mean little nephew. His sister Shannon was the craziest bitch I've ever met, and after witnessing things and hearing things in the house, I'm almost 1,000% positive she was being pursued by a dark entity. She was always screaming and throwing fits and being plain odd with her behavior. Cody and I got into talks about paranormal stuff all the time, and it freaked me out when he told me this story. When his younger sister, Morgana, we'll call her, was a child, she got woken up in the middle of the night and got the urge to look outside, and out there was a little orange fluffy creature. She said it looked similar to the one on Bear in the Big Blue House, and she said she was drawn to it, but she couldn't go outside because it was dark, and she didn't want to get in trouble. She said she would see it often just outside, right outside the window. She told her mother, and then immediately her mother called her friend who was a medium. When the medium came and talked to Morgana, she told the lady everything. The medium was horrified and very strictly told her to never ever approach it. Morgana later found out that it was a demon who preyed on little children. Scary as a part about that demon, their nephew Seth, at 3 years of age, looked her in the face and said, "What's that orange thing outside? I want to play." This medium also said that inside Shannon's room was a portal to the underworld. She had 2 cubbies that could fit a bed or a dresser. It was where the windows in her room were as well. And in the one farthest down the room is where it supposedly was. I don't doubt it for a second. When Cody was a child, he said he was in the bathtub, and his mother had just walked out when these 2 figures appeared. He said they were all black and that they were holding hands. He started to refer them as Thing 1 and Thing 2 because they were always together and holding hands. Come to find out, they were demons too. As he got a little older, whenever he slept in his bedroom, there was a black figure that would stand in his doorway. It was just as tall as the doorway and almost as wide. It would just stand there and look at him. He said it made him feel really gross inside and scared. I'm pretty sure this is what I saw when I was at his house. I was sleeping in his bed, and something just forced me to wake up. My body was facing his computer desk, which reflected the hallway whenever it was turned off, and I saw it, a black figure just standing there. I blinked a few times to see if it was maybe just a dream and I was still dreaming or something. And then I physically saw it turn and walk away. I whipped around and saw nothing. Cody told me that it could have been his great-uncle. His great-uncle was one of the creators of Cheddar Point, and his picture was hanging in the hallway, but it did not give me a good feeling at all. I saw his mother's ghost as well. When she was sick, she slept downstairs in her room close to the bathroom, in case she got sick or had an emergency. and she would take the same route to the bathroom, through a little hallway, and then through the kitchen. And that's where I saw her, only for a split second, but she was walking. It made me feel peaceful, because with all the negative energy I'd experienced, it was nice to see, finally, a positive one. Last one, I swear. They had double doors that connected the room their mother stayed in while sick and the living room. There was rope on the handles, and I asked why. The answer? I didn't like it. The doors would swing open and close violently, so they had to put a rope to stop it.